I'm joined here on the podium by three students. Patricia, who's doing a PhD in Trinity College Dublin, Martin, who's studying in the Limerick Institute of Technology, and Kat, who works with USI and UCC, a former student in UCC. And this session is about student voice, putting students at the centre of the stage. We're going to begin with a clip, which I think we'll kick off with.
I really wanted to achieve something, and you want to see you think I was after winning £1 million when I got my junior cert. It took me 2 years to get my junior cert, but when I got it, honest to God, it was like heaven.
Okay, gently, gently.
My dad felt a bit disappointed when I got married, when I had children. He thought maybe he would not see the doctor he has always wished to have in his family.
Not only do I feel it's got me a place on a degree course, but it has given me the skills and the confidence to go back and apply myself fully to that degree course without fear.
Because I was aware always that how much there is to know and how little I knew, the only way to change that situation was to do something about it. Nothing happens until action is taken.
Hi, my name is Emer, I'm from Nice and I'm a first year English student.
So my name is Robert Creed and I am from Leixlip in County Kildare. I am studying music and psychology and I've started my third year this year.
I went to St Mary's College in Nice and I got great encouragement to go to college, definitely.
I went to public school Rossmini in Drumcondra in Dublin, and yeah, I think pretty much from the get-go I've always been encouraged to progress to third level education, and I had wonderful support by people in that school while I was trying to make that transition.
I heard about the DARE scheme through a friend of mine. She got DARE and I went to my guidance counsellor and asked her more about it.
I heard about the DARE scheme through my school actually, and they helped me very much with the kind of application process.
The application process is really easy. I had a few forms to fill out and I should get a reference from the school. It was just getting the mail on time that was kind of hard. It's your personal statement as well actually, and that was hard.
That while I was applying for the DARE scheme, I got tremendous support. I had somebody working out all the forms with me, so I got a lot of help with it. So I found the application process quite manageable.
I love my course and I'm so happy in college and I've made loads of new friends and I'm really happy.
Well, the academic side of college life can be challenging. You're certainly pushed by it, but one of the things that really helped me cope with that is the fact that I'm doing subjects that I really enjoy, and I think that the academic side of things in college, it can become quite visual and visually impaired, you see. For example, in music you have music theory, so you're going into like lines and spaces and all that type of thing, which is very challenging for me. And one of the modules in the first year composed completely of that type of music, so the DSS organised somebody to work with me on a one-to-one basis every week, and that's proved invaluable.
I've gotten so much support since going to college. I meet one-on-one with a disability officer and they ask me how I'm getting on, and there are loads of exam supports and just supports in college in general.
I think it's important that when someone goes to college to avail of the supports that's there, but as far as possible to also create your own supports as well.
I would definitely say to go for an access scheme such as DARE, because I know that if I hadn't gone for DARE I probably wouldn't be on the course I'm on now, which is the course that I've always wanted.
And I've had such an amazing time in college, but the one thing that I would say to someone is that they should really try to create their own amazing time by meeting as many people as they can and just putting themselves into it and not to be daunted by it at all.
Fantastic. So there we have a variety of students telling their story, things that help them to make a difference in their lives in terms of both how they accessed and how they continued to access within the higher education environment. Patricia, you came to higher education in a fairly protracted route. Could you tell us your story?
Yes, well, when I started my degree,
I was 31, and it was my first experience of mainstream education, because I had gone through special education back in the 1970s and 80s, because it was the norm for a vision impaired or blind person to go through special education. So I suppose entering UCD back in 1997 was quite a challenge for me at that stage, but it was a real learning experience as well, and I suppose getting the supports that are required from, the disabilities support services really helped, but also just, the supports that I got from individual lecturers, ensuring that I had access to, the PowerPoint presentations in advance of lectures. Things like that are very essential for me as a vision impaired person, to be able to access the curriculum. So it was, and I've gone on and, I did a master's, and then I got the opportunity to go to Trinity, and I've just completed my PhD, which was another challenge, because it's, the education is a different level, and, you have to, I suppose, the big difference I see is, like, at undergrad level, you're given maybe a reading list, so you can go off and get the support services to get these books and to get them into a format. But when you go on and do research, like I have done, you have to go out and decide what reading materials you need for yourself, and then go and get them into a format that suits. So, it's quite challenging.
Yeah, that's quite a story and quite an achievement. Are there many of your colleagues have visual impairment, or are you the sole trader?
Well, within the school that I'm in Trinity, I think I'm the only vision impaired person at the moment. Maybe others will follow.
That's very exciting. Martin, what about you? How did you come here?
I ended up back in education through the recession, really. I worked in retail for 16 years and got to senior management, but when everything came to a head there 5-6 years ago, I found myself unemployed and sitting at home, and I didn't really, kind of got in a rush and didn't know where to go.
Right.
So I was sitting down one day, I said, I need to go back to college, I need to upskill, I need to educate, and applied through CAO with my leaving cert, which I'd done back in 97.
Okay.
And was successful and went into a business course.
And did you access any guidance services or any support? Did you?
At the time, the information was there, but I just didn't seem to be able to find it at the time. Okay. So it was all on my own back that I did it. Went to open evenings in colleges in the area, seeing what best suited. And at the time, because I was only after getting married and we were starting a family more or less straight away, I wanted something that was close, so I didn't have to travel a huge distance. So right. I ended up in what was TI Tipperary Institute, which is now part of the LIT umbrella. Yeah. So that was my access.
And what was the biggest challenge then when you were in there? What do you find?
My biggest challenge was actually my study family life, where a lot of people would be their study, entertainment and going out life. Right. When I started into college, my oldest was just 4 months old, so I was coming home to do night feeds, right, to let my wife sleep, or the people were coming home suffering a hangover. So it was a different aspect, and it kind of isolated me a little bit, because where you'd have the younger students in one corner talking about, geez, it was a great crack last night, where I sit in the corner going, geez, I'd love to go sleep now, I was up all night with a crying baby, So, but it's probably one of the biggest moves I've made in my life, apart from getting a mortgage, because it was another financial burden.
Big
it was,
decision.
Yeah.
And was it something that was in your heart from when you were very young? Was it something you avoided, or?
I made an attempt at it when I finished school originally back in 97.
Okay.
But I was just too young, I was just too immature. Okay. I just went down for 2 weeks and then just withdrew and just left and went straight into work. And at the time, work was plentiful. You could be in a job for a month and then leave and get another job because there's better pay. It was just the way it was at the time.
And did you have any recognition of the learning you achieved while you were working in retail?
Yeah, it would have been huge, because work can give me a structure. Right. So I was used to deadlines, I was used to having to do projects, I was used to having to read spreadsheets, use PowerPoint, sit in on board meetings, stuff like that. So it gave me a lot more discipline.
Okay. And was any of that recognised formally within the programme in terms of credits or exemptions?
No, and I feel that's one of the downfalls, that outside which stuff you've learned, non-academic, and even volunteering work and stuff that people do outside college needs to be recognised, because it's a big part of your college life.
And a huge contribution, I'm sure.
Yeah,
within
it's not
your
all
programme.
academia, it's what you can do in the circle when you're in there as well, and that should be recognised, because a lot of people who are here today have given up their own time to come here. That needs to be recognised as well, and it's not recognised, and it should be.
Very interesting. Kat, would you tell us where you came from?
Well, I came through the system in the way that it's made to go through. I am from a city school. I came from a city school. I went to a university that was down the road from me. I had the points. I got my first CAO offer. I had a family that could support me, and a mother who had been through the higher education and had done a master's. So I'm definitely one of the people that the system is made for. And I was completely unaware that there were people who faced inequalities or barriers. I also started in 2006, where financial burdens wouldn't necessarily have been a conversation that was had often, and I was nursing a hangover when other people were doing night feeds. But I suppose in my role then, and it's something that I really got from higher education that I never thought I would, was the learning outside of the classroom. And I feel that there is a massive barrier for people to have the opportunities that I had. So I got to do the overbroad experience. I did 2 J1s. I don't know of any students from severe or poorer backgrounds who kind of see that as an automatic thing they might get to do in higher education, to go to another country and work for a whole summer and have a really good time. And I learned a lot about myself in that experience as well. One thing I didn't get to do was to study abroad, and I think the barrier that was for me there, and I would have done it if I thought I could have, was I didn't know I was able to. I was studying science. In my head, that was what language courses or business courses did. And I was really worried that there's so many students who have that lack of information for all of the opportunities that I was able to avail of. And I suppose the ones I'd like to focus on is the extracurricular activities I took part in when I was on campus. I never went home before 11 p.m, and it wasn't because I was in the pub or anything. I was usually in meetings to do with the Students' Union or the societies that I was helping to run or the clubs I was involved in. But when I look back at the people who were helping me with that, we were all from the same background. We were all from city schools or pretty well-off means. We didn't have the same barriers that the other people were, and I'm hoping that in highlighting that to those people, that they become more, that students themselves ensure that their extracurricular activities are more inclusive of people from different backgrounds or who have different needs than the ones that the system is currently made for.
I know from talking to the three of you that all of you have had a lot of fun in higher education. I also know that you've been very successful in your learning. What would you say in terms of helping you each to access learning, really good quality, exciting learning? What was the thing that made the difference? Martin?
I suppose the big thing that made a difference for me was, and some people relate with it, was LIT in Thurles. It's not a huge college, just 780 students. But it's more of a community, family-based environment. You'll know each lecturer personally. If you haven't been in for a couple of weeks, they'll actually stop you in the car and they say, look Martin, everything all right? Or someone else in general. It's a real caring environment where I find with, and I've been in larger universities for USI stuff and union stuff, and in larger universities, you're just a number. You're just a seat up there in the corner. And what really did it for me was just the experience from day one was they actually cared that you were there.
So there was a personal connection.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that for you unlocked access to learning, high quality learning.
Yeah.
Kat, what would you say?
Excellent teachers, definitely, who taught outside the box, who didn't read from slides, who utilised something as simple as a YouTube video on, I did microbiology, so it was on cell replication, and I had an incredible teacher, Peter O'Toole, who would put up the slide and then put it to the class to discuss it, and it was a room of 40 people, it wasn't a very small group, but we really felt engaged, and it was because he was so inspiring and he thought outside the box, and he wasn't the only one who was pretty incredible, but it is the people teaching that I thought really engaged.
So the quality of teaching, the pedagogies. What would you say, Patricia?
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree with Kat. Like, you know, the support of individual lecturers, I suppose I became maybe a thorn in their side because I used to go up to them. I made myself known to every lecturer that I had in each year and set out, you know, I need this, I would really appreciate. And the majority of them were very accommodating and, you know, asked me, you know, on occasion, you know, is there something that we can do to make it easier? And, you know, even down to the fact of some of them, you know, would be writing on the whiteboard or the blackboard, whatever it was, I don't know. But, you know, they realised at the time I was recording my lectures. Right. And if they didn't spell the German name, I didn't know how to spell the German name because I was recording it and I couldn't see it. So, you know, even down to that, you know, very basic things for me, but it made the difference of me being able to access, you know.
So some of it was you being assertive about what you needed, but
yeah,
also them being very receptive to
absolutely.
it and willing to
and I
support
think,
that.
you know, for people that have, you know, different needs, it doesn't matter what, you know, challenge they're facing. I think if you do, you know, make yourself known and make your needs known, the majority of people are more than happy to try to facilitate. A lot of it, for me, I think, well, people didn't know what I needed and how I needed it. And, you know, that's still a problem. You know, even though I use a white cane, people don't realise the severity of my vision impairment and they assume that I see them on the corridor. So most people now, you know, in the school in Trinity
know how to engage.
Well, they know when they're coming towards me that they need to say hello, Patricia.
Right.
It's very basic, but I was passing them.
Okay.
And
if we go to the question, say, if you take the thing, real change takes place in the imagination. So we're imagining, we're taking an image of a new nation, we're strengthening Ireland, we're using your assets to make it stronger. You've got a sibling or a very good friend who's got a fairly identical situation to you, coming behind you about 3 years and they're going to hit college. What do you want to see different for them?
Well, for me, it would be the financial barriers associated with college. I worked part-time, so I was able to sustain myself as I lived at home, so I didn't have rent. But I meet students on a daily basis, I'm contacted by them, and even when they have the grant or they're on the Back to Education allowance, which doesn't really cover the costs of college, they are struggling. And there's a hopelessness because they can see the economic struggle that the whole country is going through, and they don't want to rely on their parents if they're young. Many of them are parents themselves, and it's the financial struggle. If there's whatever we can do to erase that and reduce that would be a huge change for the whole nation.
Okay, Martin?
I would be on the same lines as Kat. I have a sister starting first year this year in Dundalk, and I have 2 kids, and that's the choice now. Do I eventually put money into a pension or put money into my kids' college fund? What way is it going to go? At the minute, it's so expensive to send someone to college. In 15 years' time, when my oldest is going to start college, am I going to need 30 or 40 grand just to push him maybe through 2 years, never mind 4 years or doing anything else after that. So it's definitely access.
So you have a real concern about the continued accessibility of the physical experience, the physical environment?
Yeah, it's just the country needs an educated workforce. It needs an education economy. And the way things are going, that's not going to happen. Because what's going to happen is those who are educated are leaving, and those who can't get educated can't leave. And what's going to happen is we're going to have a big, huge gap there.
Okay.
And I don't
any
know where
of the
we're
assets you've developed while you were in college, you're putting them to work now to try and build a better case?
That's it, yeah.
So it has inspired you, really?
It has, yeah.
It's very interesting. Patricia, what about you?
I suppose for me, you know, the whole thing of inclusion, while it's there in policy, it's not always there in practice. And I suppose, you know, to have a guiding ethos of inclusivity, you know, not just that somebody with a disability can get into university or whatever. The real access issues begin once you're in. They don't stop. For a lot of people, they think access stops once you get in the door. Yeah. And it doesn't, because you start a whole new set of access issues, and for each person they're different. And I think that's there needs to be that recognition that just because somebody else with a vision impairment comes in, maybe to the same course that I have done, their needs may be significantly different from mine.
Okay.
And deal with it on an individual basis, but be prepared, have a system in place that, their needs will be met in an appropriate manner.
You've thrown up a lot of really interesting issues between pedagogy, innovation, community feeling, making contact with the individual, recognising difference, being able to accommodate it, having the financial supports, giving role models. You've thrown up a whole series of really, really interesting things here. I'm going to turn it to you and this wonderful audience we have here. If you had one question you would ask, is there anything that's burning with regard to access, making access more equal, making Ireland stronger, what would you ask?
I would ask about the accessibility within higher education. I think a lot of policy is put in at is being worked on at second level to get people into higher education, but I don't see a lot to get people from an undergraduate level to postgraduate, and that is a very important level. Master's courses, research practices, PhDs. I wonder what more can be done at that level to expand the access into those areas.
We'll have to wait for Patricia's publication, I think. Patricia, you've already got an audience. What about you, Martin? What would you ask?
My big thing now is it's a bit like Cash. I'm going on to my 4th year. Right. But after that, I want to continue. I don't physically think I can afford to, or I can jeopardise my family at home to do it. Because I feel I've been selfish for the last 3 years, taken away from them what I've could, but yet what I'm doing is for them.
Yes, it is.
But I don't think I can do anything else after 4th year now this year. And I think it should be open to do it. The barriers, it's blocking you from doing it currently. So when I finish and I've 4th year done, if I want to go on and do a master's and then go on and do a PhD, there's so many barriers there that eventually you just get too tired of it. It's got to stop.
There's a whole series of really interesting reflections in that. I mean, the sense that participating in education, that actually you're a burden, you're not an asset.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a terrible indictment, really, of where things are at, because it's the contrary, isn't it? What about you, Patricia? What would you ask this group if you had one question?
Well, I suppose for me, I am focusing on vision impaired students today, I suppose. And I suppose the thing that I find particularly hard to get my head around is the fact that they're still 50% less likely to enter higher education than their able-bodied peers, and I just would like that to change for students.
So that was like Brian's point. I don't know if Brian's still here, but Brian made the point earlier about people who were hearing impaired or deaf, that the participation levels are so low.
So, I think getting the opportunity to get there, and like that starts very early on. It starts in primary and secondary, and it goes right through, and it a lot of it is down to changing attitudes and expectations for these people. But that's a huge
I think we probably have time to take, maybe if there's one question from the floor. Does anybody have anything they're itching to ask? Nothing at all. You're all convinced.
Difficult.
Well, I think that leaves me then to just thank Kat, Martin and Patricia so much, because it's not easy always to come up and talk about your own story. Well done.